Joe, it's kind of not really been reported, but it's something that's been hinted on, okay, not official yet, that former New England offensive coordinator, Penn State head coach, Houston Texans head coach, Alabama offensive coordinator, Bill O'Brien, who was hired at Ohio State, which, by the way, at least I did, had a fiery segment on Bill O'Brien when he was named the offensive coordinator of Ohio State. He could be staying put in the New England area and being the next head coach of Boston College. Your thoughts on this potentially happening?
So I don't necessarily have like sourcing on this, but I had heard this a number of different times from different people, having gone to school in New England and being in New England. It's kind of easy to kind of hear the bits and pieces and connections to stuff like this. So Bill O'Brien has a son who has a developmental disorder.
Yeah.
And he actually, this was not talked about when he left Alabama and he went to New England to be the offensive coordinator. A big reason why he did that is because the services, the education, the general treatment for his son is far better in the northeastern New England area. And I, as somebody with a cousin who has not as severe of a disorder, but I had family members in California that moved to New Jersey because they wanted to be in an area that has better resources for my cousin who has a developmental disorder. So it is commonly known in the country that the Northeast, New England, is meant for this stuff. So I think I'm bringing this up for any Ohio State fan who doesn't know this and is either pissed off at Bill O'Brien or is upset over this. Right. His reasoning for me, and you asked the question earlier of what's worth more, what's better, to be the head coach at Boston College or the offensive coordinator at Ohio State? The offensive coordinator at Ohio State is a better job, but because of all of these underlying factors, it makes a lot more sense for him to take this job at Boston College because he's from the area. He gets to go back where he's from. It helps him with the situation with his son. And then most importantly, Boston College is a place, as long as you get to a bowl game and you win 7 games and you don't dip below that on a consistent basis, it's a good job. It checks the boxes. It's a good salary. You can live in a nice house in the Massachusetts area. I think that's all he's really aspiring for. I think that's why he would ultimately end up taking this. And I think it's very likely that he does take it.
I'm just going to say this, okay, as someone who has 2 children, okay, I fully agree with what you just said in reference to that will play and can play a massive issue. You have to think about your family and what is the best for them. I'm going to stay out of that personally because I'm not aware of the area, what Ohio State does have. Are there?
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but it's just easy. Even if there is good resources there, it still is better for him to be close to where he's from. That's the kind of the general gist of it.
The first thing that comes to mind is Chris Peterson. Okay, Chris Peterson had someone in his family. That's why he never left Boston College. Mm-hmm. Scott Woodward got doctors involved when he hired Chris Peterson at Washington. I would assume that Bill O'Brien, when he took the offensive coordinator job at Ohio State, had probably some of these conversations. I would assume that he did. Let's talk about on the field football wise for just a minute. And I know that it plays a massive factor, but I don't want to put his child or his family on the back burner.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about football now that we have acknowledged that is something that is very much on his mind. Joe, it's not better to be the head coach of Boston College more than it is to be the offensive coordinator of this Ohio State team. It's not. Because with the talent that he has and what he could possibly do in the Big Ten could propel him to a bigger job and to a bigger place. Now, I understand what you said about his son. Well, he was in Houston for a long time. Mm-hmm. All right. So, Houston has a lot of big-time medicine. That's where a lot of people go for a lot of treatments in the South. They go to Houston. I understand all that. If I am Bill O'Brien, there is no way in hell if it's just a football decision, a football move, I would give Ohio State a year. Like, because he's not going to have a better roster than he has right now. He's going into a complete rebuild that they tried to do at Boston College that he's not going to be able to overcome. He's not going to have success there. It's hard to win there. You got to be a hell of a recruiter to win at Boston College. He's not good enough of a recruiter. He's just not. Okay? When he had that stuff that happened at Penn State, it was a completely different time, completely different scenario, complete different set of circumstances and kids that stayed there. I think it's a horrible move. I would not do it because, Joe, let me ask you this question. If them offensively, let's just say they do what we think that they can do, all right? And offensively, they're a juggernaut. There's going to be a head coaching job that opens, Florida. You mean to tell me his name won't come up? Because his name's going to come up. Whether you like him, love him, or hate him, his name will come up. Just like Mike Denbrock's name came up for LSU, just like all these other great offensive minded coaches, names come up every year. His name will come up. I wouldn't do it. He should not take the Boston College head coaching job to lose.
I understand what you're saying. For him to, yes, there is volatility to this. There's a possibility that it's just too hard of a region to recruit. There's really, as somebody who played college football in New England, there's really not a lot of good football players in the state. I'm sorry to any New Englanders out there. There's just not. There's been an increase in the amount of quality recruits in Massachusetts that's gone up a little bit, but all of those kids leave. Like Zach Sinter's a really good example. He left to go to Michigan. Most of those kids will not stay in the area to play there. It is an uphill battle. It's an uphill climb. I just don't know. And I feel like Bill O'Brien is rarely going to be a guy that's brought up for big time job opportunities. I feel like it would have taken multiple years for him to get to a point at Ohio State in order for him to earn the opportunity to take a bigger, better coaching job. I feel it just feels like for how much he's gotten burned over the past, think about the last 3 jobs: Alabama, New England. Wait, what? Sorry, Houston, Alabama, and New England. The last 3 jobs, how badly he's gotten burned. He's been scapegoated. He's been blamed. He's been on his ass multiple times. I just feel like a guy like that is gotten to the point, again, remove the outsideness, those factors. It almost just makes more sense to take something that's got lower expectations. It's kind of like the Kyle McCord thing, which gets a lot of Ohio State fans upset over when you bring it up. It's better for him to go somewhere where there's no expectations. It's a little bit easier to win. And I know that sounds like a defeatist attitude, but for how much he's gotten kicked to the curb, you kind of have to take somewhere with lower expectations in order to build yourself back up.
I'm on the opposite. I think he's in a tailor-made place to build himself up, because I don't think being at Alabama, the expectations are completely different, because there's he's not going through the juggernaut in the SEC that he's going to have to go through at Ohio State, and he's got a loaded roster.
I'm not saying he wouldn't succeed at Ohio State. I think that he would have. And we talked about this, and I said that the move was good for both sides and that he was going to work out and he was going to be a really good coach there. But I just don't know if 2 straight years of him being the offensive coordinator at Ohio State gets him a premier job. And I don't know. I just, if he's even considering this, I feel like he has an aspiration to return home to be in Boston. That's just the way that I feel about it. And at least that it seems on the outside.
Yeah. And look, maybe that's true. Maybe he does want to be in the New England area, but it doesn't change the fact for me that I think it's a horrible move. And I do think that he can. I do think that he can have. Joe, let me ask you this question. Let me just throw this your way. Ohio State's going to be in the preseason a top 4 team, right? Maybe even a top 2 team. God bless it. What if they do play for a natty? Like, what if they do make a run here? He can get a premier job. And because you know why I say that? Here's why I say that. Because I think that there's going to be opportunities that open up. Actually, let me say it like this. How do I want to say it? Sources. Okay? Throw that out there if you want to. There are going to be coaches that leave or get fired next year at places that we have no idea that are going to open. It's going to be bigger than this one. It's going to be bigger than this year. I think it rivals on the 2021 at the end of the 2021 year, where you have a potential, okay, of some big time moves happening. So if that comes to pass, all right, Joe, you could have multiple. Mario Cristobal goes 6-6 again. What happens at Miami?
It's a fair point, but
okay.
I mean, but I would bring up though, how often do these coordinator jobs? Sorry, how often do these head coaching jobs at all of the big premier schools? They very rarely hire coordinators.
But he's different because he's
like
been
Jeff Levy's a more realistic example that he would get like a Mississippi State type job. And I don't know what like a correlative example is.
Considering that it's in a power 4.
Yeah, but you're not going to win a national title at that's.
Well, I'll throw this out there. I would much rather be at Mississippi State than Boston College.
It's harder to win at Mississippi State.
I completely disagree.
Okay, so wait, so you're telling me that Mississippi State's level of we can't do this where talk about and really hype up the SEC's level of competition and then say that it's easier to win at Mississippi State. Mississippi State is historically one of the worst teams in the SEC. What happens if
Boston College goes to the Big Ten and is not pampered by being in the ACC?
That schedule's still easier to win. If they go if that happened, if they went to the Big Ten, it's still easier to win.
Easier in Mississippi than it is in New England.
Yeah, it is. But they still play an easier schedule. Still play a much better schedule, though. Or Mississippi State plays a harder schedule.
This question: who did Arizona's only loss in the non-con come to this year?
And what was their record what was Mississippi State's record at the end of the season? They missed a ball game.
All I'm saying, and they're a field goal away from beating 11-win Ole Miss.
That's my point. Is that as good as they were, they still sucked.
Okay, he could get one of those jobs. Don't go to Boston College.
Look.
If it's just an on-the-field thing, Joe, it is better to be at Ohio State. There's a reason that Jeff Hafley left. And look, I'm going to throw this out there. I know that he's not going to probably completely care that I say this. We talked about him. Our buddy Jake Crane. All right? Mm-hmm. Jeff Hafley apologist. Okay? He's going to hate that I said that. All right? He comes out, says that what's going on in college football ain't got nothing, no reason why Hafley left. It's what we talked about. You can't win there. You can't win, Rock.
Let me ask you this, though, and I mentioned this earlier. What direction does Ohio State go in if this
if Bill O'Brien leaves, where do they go? Joe, to be honest with you, here's the thing for me. I think it's a good question, but I don't understand the level of panic that's out there on Ohio State if Bill O'Brien leaves. I like Bill O'Brien. I like him a lot. Last 2 times he was an offensive coordinator in college football, he averaged over 40 points. We've talked about that before. Ryan Day can still call plays. It's not as if that you're in a horrible situation offensively from a play calling standpoint. Now, where do they go? I really don't know. Okay. Like I really don't. I think it's a little too early. We don't know if O'Brien's going to take it yet, but I will just tell you, I'm not worried about Ohio State. I'm really not. From a play calling aspect, I think Ryan could take it over because I told you earlier in the show, I went back and watched that Georgia game early this morning. Mm-hmm. Joe, I know that he probably doesn't want to take the heat from being a play caller. Ryan Day can call plays. So I wouldn't panic yet if I'm Ohio State, and not like they are panicking, but I just don't go with who. Look, I think Ryan Day's going to make a good enough hire either way. So regardless of who I say or what I say or who it may be, I do think that there are some play callers out there that I would give a buzz to see their level of interest. But I'm going to throw one out there to you. If he wants to stay around the NFL, I'm going to throw out a crazy ass curveball to you. You ready?
Yep.
Eric Bieniemy's not staying in DC.
I actually kind of like that. I actually really kind of like that because right now, no opportunities have come to the table for him.
And
I think that would be a good move.
And I'm going to tell you, Eric Bieniemy's not getting head coaching jobs in the NFL for whatever reason.
That's a whole complex issue to talk about. And he made a poor decision putting his eggs in the basket of the Commanders, who were gonna fall apart and collapse no matter what. He's a very brilliant offensive play caller, and if he does want to make this transition to the NFL game, I mean, or to the college game and test it out, or just look for a bridge job if he doesn't end up getting hired, I would argue being the offensive coordinator at Ohio State does a lot more for you than being a quarterback's coach for an NFL franchise. I like the Bieniemy bring up there, which hasn't been brought up a lot throughout the cycle, because I think the last time we talked about this, there was an assumption that he would have stuck around in the NFL. The two that I brought up a while ago that I'm going to continually keep bringing up is Joe Moorhead, who's the Akron head coach, former Oregon offensive coordinator, was also the Penn State offensive coordinator, a brilliant offensive mind. Oregon's offense was...
Pause very quickly.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, was the Oregon offensive coordinator when Oregon went to Columbus and clapped them Buckeye cheeks.
No. That was...
Yeah.
Oh, no, you are right. You are right. That was the year.
So went up into Columbus and clapped them Buckeye cheeks, baby.
Jason Candle is also somebody who I brought up last time, who I'm going to continually bring up, who coach at Toledo, is an offensive savant, has not really held an offensive coordinator job or a coaching job at the P5 level because he went from Mount Union to Toledo, and that's where he's remained. But the guy's a guru. We saw what the hell he did at Toledo this past year in the way that they played this past season. Anyone who pays attention to G5 football, they were putting up goofy numbers. And as we're just talking about here, the offensive coordinator job at Ohio State being better than Boston College, it for damn sure is a better job than the Toledo job. Like you're talking about, I would argue you could at least position yourself, if you're Candle and you take this and you have 2 good years, into getting a quality head coaching gig. So I think that either of those options are great if they don't decide to go with what you're talking about, Bieniemy or somebody else.
This is kind of funny here. Paul says, it's like I always say, I'm fat and out of shape, but I'm a monster against my son's 9-year-old's baseball team. May need an oxygen treatment after the play, but I'm a monster scoring every time I get the ball. I kind of thought that was funny.
Is that in agreement with what I said or with what you said? I saw that.
I don't know, but I think it's funny. What about Tommy Rees?
No. We're done. We're done with Tommy Rees. We're done. We're not doing this again. I'm not doing this again. Stay in the NFL time. He was expected to go to the NFL before Nick Saban hired him. There was a lot of rumors that he was going to end up in the NFL. I think that his play calling style is far more successful in the NFL, if that makes sense, because it's a lot more 2 tight end, run the football. If you don't have the hogs, that shit doesn't work. And if you don't have the quarterback that can throw the ball downfield, which he didn't have either time with Milroe or with Drew Pine, it doesn't work. So yeah, no, he needs to stay in the NFL. I would revolt if I was an Ohio State fan and I hired Tommy Rees. I would be pissed. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.